Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. A very warm welcome to episode 3 of the Sam of Somalia show. This evening I'm joined by a guest who's the CEO of an amazing and revolutionary Arabic language resource called Arabic Workshop, and he's also a close personal friend of mine. Ryan is not only responsible for the Arabic language's first ever listing library, but is also the father of 3 children, he's a practicing GP, he's a 20-year-long strong revert to Islam, and he's a legit purple belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. In this episode of the Sam of Somalia show, a lot of it is Ryan and I having a big nerd out about how to build the most amazing languages learning resources. But we also talk about the 10-year-long journey behind Arabic Workshop, getting married, and the virtues of learning martial arts. So without further ado, please join me in welcoming Ryan to the show. Ryan, our esteemed guest, welcome.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. How are you today?
Alhamdulillah, jazakallah khaira. Jazakallah khaira.
Good. How'd you find Northampton?
We drove through really quickly, to be quite honest. So
Nice.
no,
Just straight up from London?
Straight up from London, M1, and then straight off.
Good. You look well, by the way, mashallah.
Jazakallah khaira.
It's been,
You too,
how
alhamdulillah.
long has it been since we saw each other?
I think about a year. I think it was last winter.
It must be, because I hadn't moved to Northampton yet, I don't think.
Okay.
I was still living in Cornwall at the time. So
Yes,
it
yeah,
must have been
So I
long
wasn't
ago.
aware of the Northampton link, if I was being honest. So,
Yeah,
alhamdulillah,
cool. That worked out. That was a bit of serendipity, really. Alhamdulillah. That worked out very nicely.
alhamdulillah.
So let's get straight into it. Really, there's one quite simple reason why I really wanted to have you on the show, and was really talk about Arabic Workshop. So just for the audience who don't know about it, like I'm really excited about it for a few reasons that I'll talk about. But like just for the audience who don't have any context on it, how would you just describe it in very broad terms?
Okay, in broad terms, I suppose I'd say that it's a library more than anything else. It's not really a course. And the idea was that we wanted to provide listening content for everyone. And we wanted it to be easy to kind of plug into your course.
Nice.
Or your curriculum, essentially. You know, if we think of, I suppose, an individual over their lifetime taking many different courses, that's what I suppose we would call a curriculum.
So why listening specifically then?
So yeah, of course. So I mean, for very obvious reasons, listening is it's essentially the crux of any language. You know, if you're gonna have a language that you acquire, it's going to be listening and speaking. But we have this strange situation in Arabic, which, you know, you have lots of people able to articulate Arabic for obvious reasons, the Quran, etc. And they're able to read, but have no kind of idea of what's going on. And so, you know, to me, we've got this huge population of people, which you know, that population has not really achieved its potential. And so where was the gap? Listening, really.
Yeah,
you know?
100%. There's a number of things that I think are really fascinating about what you've done, and like I think perhaps I'd start with listening. It seems quite obvious that you've sort of looked at the situation of the way in which we learn Arabic in the West, and also that is obviously a result of how the Arabic teachers are trained in the West, obviously, and we don't have a lot of situations where we can facilitate speaking really well a lot of the time. And you know, just as someone like myself who's like kind of built courses and tried to build courses and sell courses and stuff, try to make a living for myself. Like I know it's very easy for Arabic teachers to think about, well, what can I do to try to help, rather than what does it need. And it seems like what you guys have done is you've looked at the situation of all of these like Muslims who want to learn Arabic, like people genuinely want a more meaningful relationship with the Quran and also to be able to speak it and stuff as well.
Yeah.
And it seems like you've looked at that, and something I really admire as well is like how you've gone to great lengths to really like do it really professionally. You know, sometimes even Arabic teachers themselves are dabbling in this. Sometimes they're dabbling, sometimes they're like, well, I'll create this course, but we'll keep a kind of low budget because it might not work or whatever.
Yeah.
But just by looking at your website, and the fact that we had a conversation about this over a year ago, this has been a long time in the making, and you can see it, do you know what I mean? So like, that's something that I really respect. It's about time that the size of this problem, some people stepped up and said, look, we have the collective resources in our community to build a really good team with specific skills in that team and do this properly.
Yeah,
Because most attempts are dabbling really, and would it be fair to say there's no dabbling going on?
Oh, definitely no dabbling. I mean, I think you kind of mentioned on one of your previous podcasts, we actually decided that this problem needed addressing properly. It needed to be well funded. It needed to be, not a pet project. It needed to have kind of wider appeal. And I suppose, for the team, the mission is really based on an ambition for, I suppose, the ummah. If we could solve the Arabic problem, where could we take that ummah? Could it solve a lot of the problems that we experience as non-Arab speakers? Whether that's on a personal level or whether that's on a kind of larger group level, like can the group think change because of your access to resources and another world?
Yeah.
And more importantly, I suspect that it would actually give us access to another culture. And by that I mean a culture that we probably lost a long time ago whenever Arabic kind of went out of fashion.
That's really interesting. So is there an objective with Arabic Workshop for kind of everyday Muslims to be more empowered to actually have Arabic as more of a living language, like to actually be speaking it?
I think that would be my dream for sure.
Okay.
I mean, it's a bit difficult, isn't it? Because Arabs don't speak Fusha. And, I think the first reaction you'll get from most Arabs is they'll probably laugh at you when you first start speaking Fusha. And then actually, if you persist, in my experience, they have a lot of respect for you after that. After they get over the kind of, this guy's speaking an ancient language kind of thing,
right.
They have a lot of respect for that. But so I'm not really the right person. I'm not well placed to kind of have a discussion about how to alter a culture, how to create a culture, but I would love to see that happen. And I think if we can start that conversation that culminates maybe after we're gone, maybe it culminates in something great. Yeah, brilliant.
That's very interesting. I can't see how it wouldn't have a very profound effect on our communities, especially like living here in the West. If all of the people hearing the khutbah had a decent understanding of it.
Yeah.
Honestly, I've been to some khutbahs in my time where even as someone who understands Arabic, like sometimes I'll listen to a khutbah and I'll think, these kids are getting nothing from this.
No.
Like I don't say nothing. Like inshallah their Jummah is accepted or whatever. Like that's a slightly different discussion.
But you do get some real gold moments, and you just think, we've never heard anything like this in English.
Yeah.
The access to that information just isn't there.
So I definitely mean that, but I also kind of mean, but I also just mean a feeling of a connection to the masjid and to the imam and stuff, because the main thing that I think sometimes, like, these kids are just disconnected from this.
Yeah.
Like these kids are they're literally going to walk out these doors and they're going to go back to whatever madnesses they're up to. Do you know what I mean? These youths these days or whatever. Like, and it would be really meaningful and amazing, wouldn't it? If we just had a community that understood a bit more.
Yeah. And actually that gives the imam a few more tools, doesn't it? Because suddenly you've got this captive audience. What if you could convert that captive audience into a captivated audience? I think that is probably the spirit of what we're trying to do. Is you've got captive audiences in various settings. People who have an idea that they want to learn Arabic, but they don't really know what they're going to achieve with it.
Okay.
And we can, you can take that and kind of captivate them and bring them into a culture that they just wouldn't experience. And I mean culture in the broadest sense.
Sure.
Yeah, but I think that's. I mean, that's a few years down the line, but
absolutely.
It's something to aim for, I suppose.
Absolutely, Like I kind of wanted to talk a little bit about that, just to kind of see where the long-term aspiration for the need for something more thought out, I suppose, because just something that struck me, obviously someone as myself, like I don't have like a team and stuff like that. I think that really struck me, like when I first met you guys, and just watching how it's growing, how you're doing crowdfunding and what your website looks like. It's just obvious that there's a meaningful and well thought out addressing of the problem. So like to kind of move the conversation a bit further then. So just for the students out there, like, So how does it help? Do you know what I mean? Like what is the student experience like?
I suppose we're in a little bit of a kind of place of discovery with that. So I think any new product will needs to see how it's going to be received, how people are going to use that, and we rely a lot on feedback. We have had that largely because you may remember we released the prototype about 18 months ago.
Yeah.
And that informed a lot of our decisions for this recent launch. I suppose the basic principle is that most courses are going to be linear by necessity. The fact that most courses are grammatically based. It's the quick win, isn't it, grammar? Because you're able to kind of get a person through to understanding the whole dynamics of the language very easily. It's maybe one of the unusual things about Arabic. But I think our purpose is to try and get them to internalize that. So you're not necessarily, having a conversation, you're not necessarily thinking, should I have used a mudari or madi with kana, so, that kind of thing. But you're trying to create the brain equivalent of muscle memory, essentially.
Okay.
And what we did was we kind of, before we started on this path, we looked at what research was out there. And unsurprisingly, actually, the gains that you get in listening skills actually extends to all of the other skills.
Okay.
So any gains you get in terms of listening will extend into your ability to write, read. I suppose me being from a medical background, as you know, I'm a doctor. We're familiar with this concept of amodal perception. So the human being is built to transfer between different senses. I can close my eyes and hold a ball, and I can visualize what that ball looks like. So that's kind of taking a sense in your hand and kind of perceiving it in a different way. And it seems that of all the 4 skills, listening gives you that best kind of cross gains, I guess you could call it.
Yeah. So what is the listening experience like in our workshop?
Okay, so if you go onto the app, we each unit has 2 different types of listening. The first is looking at a video. Most units are videos. We have a few audio-only videos to really challenge users there, but most of them are based on videos which we selected whiteboard animations specifically because there was good research behind it, really, in terms of kind of knowledge transfer and creating an anticipation, in the user. So you've got this piece of listening associated with this animation that's about to be revealed. And what we've tried to do is try to take users away from the details and into the story.
Okay.
So even at a very early stage where you have a very limited vocabulary, the animation is supposed to tell you the story. And so the idea is to try and engage you into the purpose of your language before engaging you into the nitty-gritty of your language.
That's fascinating.
We've tried to do that as much as we can. I mean, there are going to be limitations.
Sure.
Yeah, but we do that by the script writers have been told about kind of creating stories with a but in it generally. So if you think about the but, for example, the boy was walking along the street, but what happens next, right? So there's always we're trying to incorporate twists into the stories. I think the point is that we're trying to get listeners comfortable because of all the 4 skills, again, the research points to the fact that listening induces the most anxiety in learners. And so I would say that most people taking a language probably need to get comfortable with listening for up to 3 months before they'll feel happy about kind of going through the course.
That point of anxiety is really interesting and really true. Like even at this stage now, like it's a bit of a shame to admit this. I'm a bit embarrassed in some ways, but like sometimes, like if I'm in the masjid and people recognise me, like sometimes it happens. Famous, that's the thing. Like, oh, do you want an autograph? Do you want an autograph? But yeah, exactly. Yeah, but people have seen Arabic with Sam, right?
Right.
And I'm nervous that they're going to start reeling off some Amiyya to me,
right,
and I'm not going to understand them.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Because like, Sam, you're Arabic with Sam. Like you're like if you put yourself in a position where you're an Arabic teacher, there's an assumption that you know all Arabic that will ever come at you.
Yeah.
And if you don't, then like I felt real anxiety with that. But not even that. Like even before I was a teacher, like when I was a student and stuff, like it was almost embarrassing to say like it's so common for people who study Arabic, like here in the UK, even people at degree level like myself who are learning, like to have to explain to someone, oh, I know, I'm learning Arabic, but I can only read and write it. There is definitely a lot of anxiety among students, and to be able to kind of bolt on this kind of resource onto whatever course or whatever they're doing at the moment is a real understanding of not only what the students need, but what they want. Like sometimes those things are quite different.
Sometimes actually, so that's an interesting point about what they want. Sometimes students want safety, so we've had a lot of requests to, for example, subtitle the videos.
Interesting, yeah.
And we've resisted that. What we've done instead is we've created a vocabulary builder, which we've moved into a talking transcript. So if you're used to kind of watching TED lectures, for example, on their website, you'll be used to the concept of having the transcript scrolling as you watch. So we did that, and our initial trials, we're kind of we're getting a little bit of feedback from our early adopters. What they're telling us is that they're able to actually push themselves to the next level up, where they previously thought that they weren't able to go till they've kind of, say you were level 4, really wanted to be comfortable with that before they move to the next level. Having a talking transcript allowed them to kind of push themselves a bit further, which is what you need actually to progress as a learner. So that's been really encouraging. It wasn't what we were expecting. But we'll take it.
But that's interesting though, because it's a skill to kind of listen to students. At the end of the day, like students, they're saying what they want, but they're interpreting what they want and saying it to you. Do you know what I mean? I remember us even having that conversation over a year ago about students kind of interacting with the prototype and asking for subtitles. And I have the same with quite a lot of my resources. But when they say that, what they really mean is they need a bit more support. But the way they interpret that is they need subtitles. I find sometimes subtitles don't necessarily do the job. Do you know what I mean? It seems like you've found a much more kind of sophisticated solution to that, which is really nice.
Yeah, alhamdulillah. I guess our resistance was the fact that we spent all this money on creating an animation that people were just going to go and read anyway. But also I think that there's a little bit of a skill, isn't there, in I suppose when you start off as a learner, you want to know every word. And there's a skill that you'll have in your first language, which is your ability to infer a word, but get the gist of a sentence. And that's going to be a higher level skill, but why not train it from the very start? Why not train yourself to be able to just fill in the blanks? Even if it means you've got a very limited vocabulary, say you've got 100 to 150 words very early on, you're having a conversation, you can just guess by the conversation that you're having that it's within a certain realm. You're kind of able to narrow it down. If someone's angry with you, you're not gonna kind of think I've got to bring up my directions list. Do you know what I mean? I've got to kind of focus on a different set of words, and I think that it happens subconsciously, sure, but I think it's something that you've got to train the anxiety out of you for. And I think that's going to be, I suppose it's going to be our biggest hurdle, because obviously we're delivering this online. We're not there with the user to kind of guide them through that, which is why I think for the moment at least, what we're offering is going to work best with a teacher or being on another course, which is why we just kind of focused in on saying, well, look, we're going to try and map this to every course out there.
It's really good that you're clear and honest about that, because a lot of the time students kind of they have an assumption that the way to learn Arabic is through a course. Do you know what I mean? And every Arabic resource I think is a course, and it's important kind of in your messaging to make that clear, I guess. Like I wanted to ask you as well about like how was it that you came about with the idea of leveraging whiteboard animations? Because the reason why I ask is because I know how hard those things are to put out. like I think a friend of mine, a really good friend of mine, a guy called Asher, who runs a education company, and like he introduced me to them in like maybe 2014 or something.
Right.
And like those things, they take a long time to put out.
Yeah,
like they're not the like someone like myself on my YouTube channel. Like if I was going to put out a 5-minute video, how easy it is for me just to look into that camera and just bang it out, compared to like you're talking hours with the whiteboard animation. And how many do you have in?
So
Arabic Workshop now?
we've built 150 units. So I think that's been over 18 months actually. So I think with and of those, I think maybe 6 are just audio.
Yeah.
But we've got a process now where we'll get the audio ready and we'll just put it up there, and then follow it up with the whiteboard animation as it comes through. So I don't know how many man hours it takes specifically, because we've just got a pipeline and people are working on it at different stages. But what I'd say is that if you're determined to make something work, you'll find a way. We've cut a lot of the kind of frivolities out, if you see what I mean. So if you for example, if you come to whiteboard animations the very first time, like we did, I think we started doing this about 3 or 4 years ago, and our first video, which was going to be the concept video, took about 8 months to make.
Wow.
So that just because we were trying to figure out the process as we were going along. Now we were, so in the lead up to MVP, we were churning out about 3 to 4 a week.
Okay. And how many are on the team?
Quite a few actually.
Okay.
There are contractors that come in and out as well.
Sure.
I think it helps to have a team, which is why we always knew it had to be well funded. Because I don't know if you've dabbled with whiteboard animations, but you can do a whiteboard animation or you can do a whiteboard animation.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I think if you're going to go into whiteboard, it's got to be your thing. Yeah, it's not something to just kind of step into. Well, unless you were doing something that was completely text-based, I think, if you just kind of have the text written out rather than characters and things like that, then...
No, there are ways to get the job done. Do you know what I mean? Like there are I think Video Scribe is one that I have access to.
Yeah.
And if somebody really wanted to teach Arabic, but they were really self-conscious on camera or something, there would be ways to kind of and they really wanted to create content or create educational videos. That there could be a way for them to get them out.
Yeah.
But like the first thing that just struck me when looking at the videos is how good the Arabic writing is in it, because a lot of the time these platforms, they don't facilitate Arabic writing, and the students would all vouch for me, like how much more enjoyable the experience is when you actually get to see nicely written letters in the correct order joined nicely Arabic. Looking at it, like sometimes I look at an Arabic program and it's like a work of art sometimes. But sometimes the students won't appreciate that. Do you know what I mean? You can look at an Arabic program, and like if you've tried to write a program yourself and you've really thought about how the different concepts accumulate, and how even like last night in my live show last night, I was talking about even like buffer lessons to allow concepts
I picked up on that actually.
And stuff like that.
I think that was a really good call with the buffer lessons.
Yeah, like especially in something linear. Like if something's linear, having a couple of buffer lessons that just allow students' brain just to accept the madness that's gone on. So sometimes like when I was looking at it, I was thinking, man, the students out there are not going to understand the beauty of this. But they'll benefit from it, which is the important thing, obviously.
Well, I suppose that it does make me think that when people put money into a course, I suppose what they want is they want the maximum value that they can for that money. And it's sometimes hard for people to realize that actually brain space is part of that value. Because they're just looking to consume the content. And I think we need to kind of move away from that actually. And I think people need to understand that this is a lifestyle change I need to make.
Yeah.
You know, I need to incorporate this language, which means I've got to give it time, and it's got to be regular time. It's not, you know, you kind of have a break for 3 months and you could have lost a year's worth of gains that you've had.
Yeah.
So. I think it's really important that people realize that, you know, whatever they're investing in, part of that is just got to be that brain space to kind of absorb it and reflect upon it. And I suppose it's just like going to the gym, isn't it? You're putting on your gains while you rest, not while you're at the gym.
That's a really good point. Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, we talked. I think I mentioned that a little bit in my last show actually, about how kind of like I've noticed with a lot of students, even students I've spoken to who have like gone to the Islamic University in Medina and they've come home on the summer holidays. Sometimes they go back in the new year stronger, just because they've had that whole summer holiday to kind of just let their brain accept it. Even though you would think in theory they're out of practice. You know, which is interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's just a case of letting that kind of, you know, you internalize things. You've got to kind of be comfortable with them. I suppose that's the thing.
With with Arabic Workshop, did you ever kind of like, I'm only asking this because I've spoken to quite a lot of Arabic teachers now, and almost all of them have had this issue with feeling a real pressure to like not charge very much for it. Have you felt that? Like I still do, by the way. So like, do you experience that?
So we are grappling with that all the time.
Sure.
I suppose because we're now at the first stage where we're actually starting to charge people. I suppose the story that most people don't know is that this project for me is about 10 years in the making. I've actually gone back and looked at videos I did 10 years ago.
Sure.
And you know, trying to find the kind of secret sauce to it all. And I remember trying to enlist the help of people because, you know, you obviously feel passionate about your ideas, and you know, to try and get other people interested. And I remember kind of you know, just building a rough and ready website with, I think it was about 5 videos. I was getting into gardening then, so I kind of did a kind of Monty Don kind of, you know.
Are you still into bees, by the way?
Oh yeah.
Nice,
yeah, we
mashallah.
still get honey every year
Mashallah.
from that.
Mashallah.
So I was kind of doing a kind of gardener's world type of, you know, thing in Arabic, and I remember taking this to a brother, and a brother saying, "Oh my God, that's just the most boring thing I've ever seen." But coming back to the charging thing, so you know, it was always meant to be a labor of love and you know, sadaqah for the akhirah, that kind of thing. I think 2 things I realized along the way. So when I decided to take this on kind of seriously, as a you know, to set up a business, if you like. Firstly, is that the business, if you're serious about business, it brings with it a requirement for discipline.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, you're going to start hemorrhaging money, you know.
And
it'll be your investors' money, which you should, at least for me, I feel more responsibility towards other people's money than my own. And the second thing is you know, there's a realization at some point that if you want the best people working for you, you know, people get your mission, they just don't have time, you know, they've got other things in their life. And if you want the best people working for you, you've just got to pay them. You've got to make it, you know, you've got to kind of have their attention. And that's when things just changed completely, you know, kind of took on a different rate and speed. And in fact, you know, what you do is you actually buy people time in their various disciplines to iterate on your product.
Yeah.
So there's many times during the last 3 years where I've thought, you know, we've got to the final product, and then the audio guy will come along. So Omar, who is in Turkey, he'll come along and say, you know what, I'm not quite happy with that audio. And you can't see it, because you're not, audio isn't your thing. And then suddenly he says, you know what, I'm going to go away and work on this and come back to you. So he'll be back then in the evening, and suddenly you're like, oh my God, we've got to redo all our videos now because of this quality improvement. And so there are literally jumps that you have, and you know, we've had the same with the we use VideoScribe, but we use a combination of VideoScribe and Adobe Suite.
No, you can tell.
Yeah, and so there's always, when there's a kind of realization that, you know, there's a tiny little problem here, we never kind of focused on it before, but, you know, we can use this other program to kind of come in and sort this problem out.
Yeah.
That then becomes the standard, you know, and then you find the next standard and then the next standard. And so we've actually managed to find a way to try and get full animations now, so full stop motion animations. And the question is whether we should take that leap, because obviously it means expanding the team a little bit more now, all of a sudden, you know. So yeah, it's I suppose that's what charging for the product properly does for you. It kind of focuses your attention a little bit more.
I'll just say, I can't believe how cheap it is. I think you're off your head. To be honest, but considering the kind of product that it is right? Like I think with something that you bolt onto your course, even though it's more thought out than the main course you're doing, even if it's better funded than the actual course you're doing, I think it would be it'd be difficult to justify anything different to what you're currently doing.
Right.
So when I look at it and I think this thing's a beast. Like this thing's like a lot of time and effort has gone into it from a lot of different people over a lot of time. But for what it is right. Do you know what I mean? Just
yeah. I mean, it's finding that balance, isn't it? Because I think it'd be fair to say that, you know, most of the discussions that we've had, it's always been about the mission. It's you know, how do we get as many people on board as possible? If we could do it for free, we would. You know, if we were funded somewhere. But you know, I think as well that there is a little to be said about people having to pay a little bit for what they have to do, whether it's in money or it's in some other way.
There's a lot to be said for that.
Yeah. I think you just take it a little bit more seriously if you pay for it. You know.
Definitely. There's a saying that. You know, I had an interview recently with someone who's hopefully going to be a guest again on the podcast. But I remember this thing that I'd heard online somewhere, that the more someone pays, the more they pay attention. You know, like for the Arabic in 60 Steps program, for my program, like when I run it with, you know, like I have mentors who work for me, who check in with the students every week and stuff like that. And when a student parts with nearly £500 for that program, they're turning up. Like £500 is a lot of money for most people to invest in their education. Do you know what I mean? Like they are checking in with their mentors every week. If I'm not doing everything I'm supposed to be doing, they're on to me the next day. Like if they're not getting everything they need, and like, you know, that's really true. That's
actually,
very true.
I've never thought about it that way. It's actually keeping us honest as well, isn't it? As the manufacturers or the service providers. And I suppose that's the thing. It's kind of ensuring that we maintain the quality in that transaction. So I think that it's kind of good all the way around.
It is, yeah. The only reason why I asked about it, like, it's just because I know so many Arabic teachers struggle with it. Like I know, because there's kind of an expectation for Arabic teachers to not like over promote themselves, or things that are meant for the religion to not appear like too corporate or markety. But in the meantime, Starbucks are marketing to them. They're paying £4 for a coffee in the meantime. Whilst we're worrying, we don't want to push a product too much in the meantime. Like, but whereas when you actually have something that the amount of time and effort has gone into, it is if anything, it's a duty upon you to make sure that it actually gets into the hands of people who benefit from it.
Yeah, I mean, I get that. I think we all wrestle with that, don't we?
Sure,
because it's I guess some of the guilt is maybe that, you know, the audience is largely coming from a Deen point of view, and you know, I think there's a sense of like, should we be exploiting this or doing it for free? You know, will our reward be diminished? I get all of that. I mean, I suppose the way to look at it is the other way. I mean, we've both been learners. You know, I've never been a teacher, so I think it's probably important I say that from the start. So I'm the team, I suppose, was initially more about the user experience. You know, and I think that's maybe where my advantage was with this product. But if you're coming at it from a user perspective, you know, you're holding teachers to that high standard, you know, that they should be doing this for the Deen and they should be doing this for free. You know, look at what Imam Malik did, and you know, he sold the roof on his wood on his roof to kind of ensure that he was gaining knowledge and things like that. But there were other people that were were taking money for the ilm that they were giving their
and
students.
taking money for ruqya and stuff. Do you know what I mean? Like, yeah.
Exactly. So it's like, dude. I suppose the point I'm thinking of is like, if you as a user are holding your teachers up to that kind of standard, are you holding yourself to that standard as well as a learner?
Yeah.
You know, are you taking this seriously? I learned my Arabic from a student of knowledge from Medina. He's actually a student of Sheikh Haytham at the moment. His name's Faraz Farhat. I remember starting in a class. We did the Medina books to start off with. I guess that's where all of this starts from. It stems from, is having completed the Medina books. I was just, what do I do now? Like, I can't have this conversation with people.
Yeah.
I was the only one to finish it. Like, in the last year of that class, it was just me and him. And I loved it. Don't get me wrong. We eventually kind of were able to read Usul al-Fiqh and Tafsir and things like that. But I think the point is, we were holding him to the standard. He never charges for classes, right? And he's such an amazing resource, just based on the kind of knowledge he has and how well read he is. But is that kind of standard being?
I think our perspective
it's one way.
I think our perspective is wrong in a number of ways. Like, we kind of idealize the way the students in the past learn.
Yeah.
Whereas, like, you've got to understand, like, the learning wasn't free for them. They maybe walked 10 miles to get to their lesson.
Yeah.
Something. It wasn't free. Yeah. Like, a lot of the time, even they'd have to prove that they're qualified to sit at the feet of these teachers who would teach them free.
Exactly.
Do you know what I mean? Like, it's never the case that it was just free. And like, even if you were just to think of it, like, I mean, what is the pittance you charge? Is it like £7 a month or something, £8 a month?
Yeah, we charge £7 a month for the monthly.
Fine. Okay. So that amount, like, you could think of that as just packaging. Like, that's packaging it in a way that's convenient for people of our times and for the problems that these students have.
I got that.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
So
it's a good way to think about it, actually.
so let's kind of bring it back a little bit to, like, I always like to kind of start the show just talking about the main thing that we really want to talk about, and then it's nice to build a bit of context about how we kind of got there. So what's your background, by the way? Like, where are your family from?
So my family are from Goa in India. So
you're not an Arab?
So I'm not an Arab, no. Okay. Although I've got a funny story to tell about that a bit later on.
Okay.
I think the Yemenis had traveled down there, actually, rather than the Egyptians and the Yemenis had traveled to South India. So I think the Islam in South India tends to be Shafi, for example.
Okay, that's really interesting.
It is looking at the history. But obviously not relevant to my life. I used to be Catholic. I converted in 1999.
Oh, mashallah.
Yeah.
So this year it's like 20 years. You've been upon Islam. Wow, mashallah.
Yeah.
Mashallah.
20 years. And interestingly, my Arabic started actually a year before I converted.
Oh, really? Yeah. Wow, that's really interesting. So, but were you born in the UK, or were you?
I was born in Goa.
Okay.
My family were based in Oman actually until I was 13. And
okay.
I came here during the 1990 World Cup. In my opinion, the best World Cup that there ever was. I don't know if people will.
Any exposure to Islam? Then?
So no, that's really interesting. I had no idea about Islam.
Subhanallah,
we would see a lot of stuff on TV, right? And for example, we would see the tawaf going on during the Hajj and stuff like that.
Sure.
But obviously, you rationalize, the kind of ideas that you have around at the time. And so for me, this was just another shrine to another religious person. So I always believed it was the grave of the Prophet ﷺ, and that people were making tawaf around it because they were respecting the Prophet ﷺ. So, and there was no one there to really correct that. And I really converted when I started med school. And I think credit to the brothers, I don't have an amazing story to tell about that. It was just drip dawah, really, until the kind of penny dropped.
Okay. Was it medical school just because you're Indian? that's the obvious thing.
For sure.
Of course it was. Okay, good.
So yeah, I mean, I've got this kind of. I'd like to think I've got this kind of creative streak in me, but that's kind of.
Didn't matter.
It didn't matter.
That's so funny. My sister's doing medicine at the moment.
Oh, is she? Okay.
I might have mentioned it to you. She's maybe in her third year. Or
Oh yes, you
now.
did actually. Yeah.
She's in a lot of pain.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's hard work. Obviously.
Yeah, it is. It is hard work, and actually, interestingly, again, it's another story to tell. But I've done a lot of teaching of medical students, and actually, that's where a lot of the research for Arabic Workshop kind of came from. Actually,
really
that came from that place, because you're talking about people who are needing to perform at a high level very quickly.
Yeah.
And so I just wondered whether we could take some of those ideas and apply it into Arabic. So I think that's
That's really interesting. Yeah, that is really interesting. Like I think it's particularly admirable, if you don't mind me saying that. Like someone who is you're a GP. Like
I'm a GP.
You still work as a GP.
I still work as a GP.
But still, even like if you're in that position, you still work as a GP. Like you're probably relatively comfortable. To decide to take on a project like this for the past 10 years?
Yeah, well, it's been frustration for most of those 10 years, but I got serious about it. I suppose the positive spin to give on it is that, I'm in a place in my career where I could use the relative stability to actually go into developing something like this, whereas a lot of people are actually struggling to just make things work for them,
So that's been the case for me most of the time, right? Like, because I was a primary school teacher for like a term.
Right.
And then my wife told me that she was pregnant with our first boy, Yusuf. And we've got two now, by the way. Did you know that?
Yeah, I did know that. Yeah.
We've got two now. Yeah. So that there was nothing to be said about the second one when we last met, and now all of a sudden, there's another baby in the other room.
Yeah. No, I think you've been texting. I think that when we texted each other, you did mention it.
Yeah. So at that point, so like. I don't know why obviously normally like if your wife tells you that you're gonna have a baby, like most people would think, well, I need to keep this job. Do you know what I mean? But for some reason I didn't think like that. I thought like, well, it's now or never. I need to like if I don't take my life onto a trajectory that I want, then I'm never gonna be able to.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? Like I wouldn't advise that for most people, but that was just my story and it's just really interesting to hear about the evolution of this project, really, because obviously for myself, it's been a lot of it has just been, well, what can I use from my own ability and my own experience at university and the travelling I've done and stuff to try to package something of value. But it's nice to see an experience where the team that you have gone from a position of comfort to say, because most people choose not to do extra. If people are comfortable, people settle for that normally. Yeah. People don't normally choose to take on a project like this. But to see it kind of worked backwards, because you kind of have the privilege at that point to be able to say, well, what do the students need, rather than, kind of what I said at the beginning of this show, like to start with what the students need rather than just what you can provide and then try to encourage people to pay for it.
Yeah. So I think in that sense, this was the only point in my life that it was the most logical point in my life to do this, because I think, I don't know about you, but most of my life has been pre-Facebook, right?
Okay.
And I know that kind of seems like the reverse of a zombie apocalypse to most people. It's like, what did you guys do?
Anybody who knows what TikTok is, they do not know that world.
Exactly. I mean, we have this joke in my family about the kind of difference between papyrus and paper, and the kind of way things have progressed right now. And so. I think, firstly, the fact that it's become so much more easy for people to set up a business now, it just made more sense. I think the other kind of advantages I had, I had experience of teaching people who are needing high performance, to perform highly, should I say. So I've kind of got that. Or have had that under my belt with a good understanding of what that involves. But I think also, I think Arabic specifically as a language is a little bit behind the curve at the moment. And so I think for me, it was like a huge opportunity to say, well, look, could we get Arabic actually not just ahead of the curve, but setting the standards for other languages? Like, could we? So I suppose this is where the ambition of the project lies. Is could we start to analyze the data that we're getting back to answer really important questions in linguistics research? You know, I think the whole idea of user-led innovation has now taken hold. You know, prior to that, it was a case of, you know, you became the professor or you became the expert in your field and you dictated the terms. It was actually Facebook changed all of that. You know, largely it was Facebook. You know, it was suddenly the user experience is king.
Yeah.
And I think Arabic could benefit a lot from that, actually. And you know, alhamdulillah, this journey has kind of allowed me to meet really interesting people, you know, people doing research at Oxford University, for example. One of the very first people I met was this sister, Anna Maria, who is just about to finish a dissertation on motivation and engagement in Arabic learners.
Wow.
At secondary schools, right? And I just can't wait for that, the results for that to come through, because that's just going to inform so much in terms of how we deliver content to users and how we keep them engaged.
Yeah.
So I think it's kind of the right time on that curve for Arabic, really. You know, I think we're going to have to start. So we talk about in medical education about the ivory tower and the muddy swamps, right? So the ivory tower is obviously what we recognize as the ivory tower, people of knowledge who dictate the terms and say that these are the standards.
Yeah.
Well, actually, all the learning is done in the muddy swamps.
Okay.
And that is where you've got to be kind of listening to your users to find out, how do I get you out of the swamps onto those little patches of certainty, you know, until you get to areas where that certainty has increased massively. I might put out a blog post about that. It's quite a nice idea for teachers to kind of understand. And
So at Arabic Workshop, I have seen some of the articles actually on your Facebook and on your Instagram page. You're promoting some of those. So you like some of the team are writing articles.
Yeah. So I think I think it's largely going to the first thing's going to be kind of explaining our model, because it's not, you know, we're not packaging a course like you said. I think it's going to take time for people to understand that first. But then I think I would like, this is my own personal ambition, I'd like the project to kind of inform research or, you know, be part of that research process, because I think it's really important that we're listening to people, looking at the experiences and trying to kind of correct mistakes. You know, I think linguistics is not as much of an exact science as medicine or physics is, for example. So I think it's going to be much harder to kind of get opportunities to, I don't know, answer important questions like, you know, let's pick a question, I suppose. So is the writing method actually an effective one?
Yeah, cool.
You know, and at what stage is it effective? There's no doubt that writing, or the process of writing actually helps you as a human being, right?
Yeah.
Kind of understand your ideas. But at what point do we introduce that to make learners of a language really effective at their language? You know, so those are the kind of questions that would be really interesting to answer.
It's a good point about there being kind of a lot of merit and virtue to try to build data about the way in which people are learning Arabic, because, you know, like the attempts, whilst there are a lot of really good attempts out there, and there are a lot of people who are genuinely really trying to help their students, obviously, but a lot of it is really disjointed. Like there's tons of stuff that teachers are learning in the trenches, in the muddy swamps, right? That they're learning about how students are learning and stuff, but there's, you know, another teacher might have to teach another 5 years, whereas if we just kind of had something a bit more effective for actually accumulating knowledge about that.
Absolutely.
That's interesting. So to kind of go back to the kind of accumulation up to this, right? So you go to medical school. Or what age? What age you start medical school?
17, 18?
Okay,
I think it's 18.
Okay, so fairly typical, like A-levels and then
So you
university?
do your A-levels and then uni,
Okay, you had to do physics, chemistry, maths, or whatever?
I didn't do physics, unfortunately. I wish I had a time machine and went back and kicked myself and did physics, because it's actually the most fascinating. So I did biology, chemistry, and maths.
Okay, my sister did that as well, actually.
Right.
So, like, funnily, chemistry is more useful, isn't it? It's like, I don't mean more useful. What I mean is like the medical school value it higher than biology. Is that right?
So yes, it is right, because they're gonna teach you all the biology.
Got it.
And largely, subjects taught in science at A levels. When you start doing it at university, I've heard from people who've done chemistry as well, you've got to unlearn a lot of that.
Okay.
To start afresh. So I think they prefer to teach you the biology themselves.
Got it.
Which is why, it was really interesting. We never took the human biology module, even though it's actually 100% of our class were going to go into medicine.
Okay.
That was the ambition.
Okay.
Yeah. But they didn't want to. Instead, we kind of learned botany.
Right.
Like at the time, I remember thinking, "Oh, it's the most boring thing in the world."
Yeah.
Then I got into gardening when I was kind of in my late 30s. So.
Okay. Right. So looking at the timeline, right? So what do you study? Do you study in London?
So yeah, I studied in London, South London more specifically, and I went to med school in South London as well, St George's. So,
that's where my sister is. Yeah,
is she? Okay,
St. George's,
yeah. So changed a lot since I've been there. So.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah. It's quite a small uni, isn't it? Like, is it only for medical?
It's only medical because the campus is so far away from other campuses. So it had its positives were that. You really got into a good group of people if you and you kind of built relationships that last.
That's good.
But the slight problem with going to medical school is that your ideas don't go challenged.
Okay.
So there's a kind of downside to it. I think people tend to validate. So medics think in a certain way, and it's sometimes easy for you to kind of fall into a certain way of thinking and not be challenged by people in the arts and things like that. So I think I would have preferred to have gone to a university.
That's interesting. Yeah. So did you come to Islam when you were at university?
So yes, I did, yeah. Okay. So I think it was year 3 actually, so third year. I would have been about 19 at the time.
Okay. And you married?
I am married, yeah.
MashaAllah.
Yeah.
Did you meet someone at university or after?
I did, yes. Alhamdulillah.
Okay. So another medical student?
Another medical student, yeah.
MashaAllah. Another Indian?
So no, she's English actually. Alhamdulillah. So they say that most medics tend to marry medics.
Right.
It's just I think on one of the induction lectures, the professors get the parents to kind of look to the right and left and say that these are your future in-laws. Kind of thing.
That's really funny. That's really funny.
But no, she's a medical researcher, so got a good kind of medical background.
Okay. And did she like embrace Islam at a similar time to you?
So she was maybe a year before me, but she did it largely because she spent a gap year in Malaysia and had a really good experience there, and it was a different journey to mine.
That's amazing, mashallah. And then, so you would have met at university, and was it? Did you get married whilst you were still studying medicine?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah. So we were about 18 months to my graduation when we got married.
Okay, mashallah. I know a brother, so I spoke to a brother recently, who he's been married for like a year now, but his wife is Dutch, and they were studying Arabic together at SOAS, and she embraced Islam, and then like 2 weeks later, like they were just, like after a lesson or whatever, they were revising in a coffee shop, and he was like, "Do you want to meet my mum?" And she just goes, "Do you want to?" She was like, "Do you want to marry me?" And he was like, "All right." And then like they
That's so romantic.
I know. Pretty much like 2 weeks later, like nikah was done. Like literally, she's not been a Muslim for a calendar month.
Yeah.
Like and she's married to this brother, mashallah. Yeah, mashallah. Yeah, I would have loved to have got married when I was at uni, but qadar Allah, the opportunity didn't come around. But I got married pretty much straight. Like I graduated obviously in July of 2015, and then I was married in September.
Okay.
In 2015, yeah. So that, like, but like at university, there's obviously a lot of fitna. Like it would really protect you. Like I don't know if it's just because I was a 21-year-old male at university, but it seemed like SOAS was full of pretty women as well. I don't know if it's just because you're like I thought like have all the pretty women just come to this university? I don't know if it's just
I think you were a 21-year-old male.
That's probably. Yeah.
I don't mean to. That's come out the wrong way.
But that's exactly what I felt like.
That's completely come out the wrong way.
Yeah. So, but it wasn't just me. I'd be in the prayer room with some brothers. I'm like, are all the women at the university pretty? Like, we can't seem to get married. But that's why, like, I asked him, and I asked you the same about whether you got married at university, because it's rough out there.
It is. And, I think, obviously people have to decide for themselves and make sure that it's right for themselves. But I think marriage is one of the biggest protections for your deen in that kind of environment.
Yeah,
for sure. 100%.
So get married at university, and then afterwards, like, how long is there between then and you starting to think about Arabic workshop?
Oh, right. Okay, that's an interesting thing. So I think when you start Arabic, at least in those days, pretty much your influence is going to be people like Hamza Yusuf, right?
Yeah,
and you want to be the next kind of Hamza Yusuf. That's probably what's happening. Or, like in my case, you kind of like the technicalities of it. So your dream is to memorize Alfiyat ibn Malik.
Okay, yeah.
Something like that, right? And I suppose it's only really on becoming a parent that that you start thinking about other people. So I remember when Medina became not an option for me. There was a particular point where I realized I was just going to have to choose a career in medicine or choose to go off and study. And I can remember being completely distraught about it.
Yeah.
And I suppose initially your ambitions are always going to be personal. You want to kind of excel and you want to get to this certain level. I suppose at some point there was a realization when it was to do with my own children, because I wouldn't say I'm a natural teacher. So I mentioned I do the medical teaching, but medical teaching is actually a case of knowledge transfer and really highly motivated people.
Yeah.
It's not like teaching a class. So I'm not a natural teacher. So my kids are actually, they whatever they've got has not been from me.
Okay.
But I suppose...
how many kids do you have, by the way?
I've got 3.
Okay, mashallah. What ages?
Oldest is 16 now.
Oh, mashallah.
Yeah, so he's just starting his A-levels.
Oh, mashallah.
And the youngest is 11.
Okay, mashallah.
Yeah, into BMX and things like that.
Of course he is. Okay.
I think as I was thinking about how they needed to kind of, I needed to make Arabic interesting for them. I started to think about, introducing, or wishing that I had the ability to talk to them about their interests in Arabic.
Okay.
And I think then it kind of dawned upon me that actually the way to kind of learn a language is always going to be a personal path for you. You will make a language come alive for you when you are able to kind of talk about your interest, your job, your personal circumstances. And that largely most courses are there. From an independent learner point of view, it's going to be completing Medina books or Bayna Yadayk, largely.
Yeah.
Those are the 2 major ones, and Arabic, the 60 steps with Arabic with Sam, of course.
Of course. I should let you know, I haven't paid him for or the gateway books or whatever.
Or whichever system, and they're all pretty good at what they do, I suppose, if you've got the right backing as well.
Sure.
I think that's, but how does an individual make it a kind of major concern for them?
Yeah.
And it's only going to be when they can start to talk about their life experiences and even make jokes in that language. And I think that was something that I realized once I started taking conversation classes. So I do sessions on italki with. That was how I met most of my team. Actually, was through this one brother that I kind of did italki classes.
They're a sponsor of the channel, by the way.
Sorry?
They're a sponsor of the channel.
Oh, are they?
Yeah,
okay.
so get an extra shout out.
Okay, nice.
I'll have to charge him for that. I'll send you an invoice. italki. No, go on.
Yeah, I mean the concept's amazing.
Yeah.
And I always thought, is this something that we need to kind of get a dedicated Arabic thing going for? But I think they're so strong at the moment.
Yeah.
That I don't think there's any point for anyone to really go there.
No.
But Yeah, so I think having these kind of conversations, I deliberately chose someone who wasn't a teacher because I really wanted to have conversations.
Okay.
And then suddenly we got to the stage where, we were laughing about things. And, initially I wouldn't get the whole gist of it. Sorry, I wouldn't get all the details of it, but I get the gist.
Yeah, got it.
And it kind of dawned upon me. My daughter kind of passed by my room one day, and she said, "Dad, I didn't realize you were so fluent. You're just like blah 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 blah." I was like, "Well, I didn't realize I was that until I was actually, I was using language as a vehicle to do the communication. Like the language was just being removed as this kind of barrier." And so I think we need to see that actually. We need to, like, teachers need to make students perhaps realize that, language is just your wasila. It's your means to something else.
Yeah.
And you've just got to find that something else.
That's a very nice way for us to kind of close the loop about what we talked about in the beginning of the show, where we talked about how in Arabic Workshop, in your animations, there'll be a narrative that students will follow, and almost it almost kind of leads the student to believe that the language that they're actually learning is almost secondary.
Yeah.
In some cases, obviously they're subscribed to Arabic Workshop and they know their Arabic
they're
skills,
here for Arabic.
Obviously, right?
Sure.
But the concept is the case, right?
Yeah.
That's nice. Before we close, inshallah, there is one last thing I want to talk to you about, because I remember when we met last time. Remember you mentioning that you were a purple belt in jiu-jitsu? Is that right?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Have you trained? The reason why I want to talk about it, because it's always interesting with anyone who's trained martial arts, and is it right you're a purple belt?
Yeah, I am a purple belt.
Purple belt's a legit grappler. If you've trained to be a purple belt, what, 5 or 6 years? Did you train for to get that?
No. So it's the Ryan journey is always a weird and complicated one.
Okay, go on. Here we go.
So it's been about 15 years to get to purple, but that's largely been because career has I've taken breaks and injuries and things like that. And
no, that makes tons of sense. Like the shortest I've ever known people to get to purple belt is about 6 years. Like people who go that's from real scratch.
Yeah.
So sort of 6 years. People who go regularly, jiu-jitsu, it tends to be sort of 3 or 4 times a week that the people who progress really quickly do. So people who train martial arts to any kind of serious level often kind of, they turn to really philosophical about lots of other things a lot of the time, and it'd just be interesting to know about kind I think you kind of took from it.
What BJJ, as opposed to other martial arts, does is there's a kind of, you can decide that you're going to be really a scrapper. You're going to be this scrappy fighter who's just going to kind of make things happen.
Yeah.
Or you can be really technical and you can kind of get over the problems of dealing with scrappy people with technicalities. And you can guess which one I settled for.
Okay. Yeah.
So eventually, some people in my class started calling me professor and stuff like that. I was really interested in the dynamics and how you can make different body shapes work.
Yeah.
And I'm always, I take what you mean about purple belts. There's a huge dropout even before you get to the blue belt stage.
Yeah.
But I'm always amazed to see black belts fight, because it's just a complete conservation of movement. They're kind of as relaxed as you can get, minimal movement, but they're achieving such massive kind of leveraging massive opponents, and really getting kind of control of them. I think that's what kind of got me into BJJ. Really.
I always kind of, in my head, when I roll with people, I always kind of draw a parallel in my head between having a conversation with someone, because when I tap, it's similar to saying, I don't understand that. Do you know what I mean? It's very similar to that. So
I guess that's the philosophy coming in.
Sometimes people will attempt a submission or whatever, and I'll know an escape from it. It's like I know the response in a conversation, and just whenever kind of, I get, whenever I find learning language. Obviously, I'm learning Somali. My level of Somali is anywhere near as good as my Arabic or whatever, and I'm always trying to practice with my wife and whatever. And I find myself in positions where I don't know what's happened, or in my business, or trying to build this channel or whatever. I don't, sometimes I get to a point where I need to tap. Do you know what I mean? To try to take a step back and then learn about what happened.
Yeah.
And when I get to roll with people, it kind of, because you can forget, when another grown man's trying to strangle you to death, it's very easy to like block out the noise of the other things that are going on
Yes.
and think about it in a really mechanical, really physical way in front of you.
And also, I suppose in that scenario, it's about how far can I push myself before I lose consciousness. You know,
That's true.
it's
That's
serious.
interesting.
So I think that's why BJJ gives you a lot of confidence. Is you're putting your body under stress where most people would back out. And it's really teaching you kind of grit and determination. Well, actually, you know. So we used to do a little bit of MMA as well, and you know, the first time you take a shot to the face, not that I'm advocating like you know shots to the face, but it's inevitable that you do any martial art, you're going to take a shot to the face at some point. It's just like the world has ended, right? And I think boxers will understand that even more than others. But you know, after a while, you realize that you can take a few shots on the way down to the position that you want to be in to then win. You know, and I think that's what you know. Really, martial arts, particularly if you have a good teacher who can give you that kind of philosophy behind it, it kind of teaches you. It just kind of builds your confidence for everything else.
There's so much virtue in it. You know, there's a dojo where I like to train in East London. It's called Submission School, and like it's a group of. Like it's like the guy who runs it is a Muslim guy, and the majority of the people who train there are Muslims as well. And there's a lot of kind of a Muslim philosophy towards our training and us being a team and stuff. And there's, you know, really like the teacher, he talks more about the virtues of jiu-jitsu off the mat than on the mat. That's interesting. I definitely know what you mean about being punched in the face. The one for me was being leg kicked. I don't know if you've ever been leg kicked by someone who's a good kickboxer.
I used to do a bit of kickboxing as well.
Or even like being punched in the liver and stuff. Like when you get hit, like some body shots are the most painful things I've ever experienced.
Well, the important thing is that that's the first time, you know. But once it happens, you know what it's like, you know. 100%. And then I suppose it's the same with life. You're going to be dealt with blows. I guess this is the philosophy coming out. You're going to be dealt with blows all the time. But you, as a human being, Allah has created you to be able to kind of deal with that. I mean, that's what makes us human, you know.
Let's wrap it up, inshallah.
Yeah,
is there anything else you'd like to mention, inshallah, before we go?
No, Jazakallah khairah. You know, I really appreciate your time, bro. I mean, it's really nice. It's nice to have someone outside the team get it.
Yeah, sure.
I think that's been the biggest hurdle initially, at least, you know. But once we had product in hand, people started getting it, and it's nice that.
I think that will. Yeah, it's interesting that you say that, you know, as you're mentioning about Facebook earlier, like a lot of Facebook's success was due to the fact that like Bebo and MySpace came before it. People got the idea of what Facebook was because of those companies that failed and stuff before it. And it would have been useful if we had a few Bebos and MySpaces before Arabic Workshop. It would have been useful.
Well, let's hope we don't take. We're not the Bebo, the MySpace.
I'm not saying that.
I know you're not.
No, what I'm saying is the time. Do you know what I mean? Like,
exactly.
Bebo and MySpace, they didn't have the time to wait around. Do you know what I mean? But like Arabic Workshop has proven that it has the time. Do you know what I mean? Like it's
Alhamdulillah.
it very nearly looked like I was handing you a P45. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we'll end this episode, inshallah. Jazakallah khair for coming on episode 3 of the Sam of Somalia show. This will go on the Arabic with Sam podcast as well. I don't know why I'm looking at the cameras. It's only in here that'll hear the podcast.
Oh, right, okay.
But it'll go everywhere, so don't you worry about the audience hearing about it, inshallah. I'm really excited for everyone to hear about it. Barakallah.
Appreciate it, man.
Thank you so much for enjoying this evening's episode of the Sam of Somalia show. To follow Arabic Workshop and to keep in touch with all of their progress, you can follow them on Instagram at Arabic Workshop. Or you can just go straight ahead and you can start your free trial today at www.arabicworkshop.com. Our next video on this channel will be on Monday, and it will be a Somali language video. So make sure you subscribe to this channel, and please don't forget to hit the bell if you haven't done so already. That way you'll keep in touch with the channel and everything that we're uploading all week long. And until the next time, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Iyo nabad gilyo.